She had no strength left to fight, so she entrusted her child to the greatest enemy of her kind. The wind cut like blades through the frozen pines of Alaska. It was nearly 3 in the morning, and the sky, a deep, star-streaked blue, rumbled in silent tension above the mountains. In a secluded wooden cabin, nearly 20 miles from the nearest outpost, a man was lighting the fireplace for the 3rd time. The flames kept dying out. His name was Noah Keller, a former U.S. Air Force officer, now retired and living in self-imposed exile after a classified mission that shattered his faith in the government, in war, and in himself. He had no family. He lived surrounded by piles of books, dismantled radios, and a loyal husky named Maya, who understood his loneliness better than any human ever had. It was Maya who heard it first. A cry. Sharp, brief, completely out of place. Noah looked up, frowning. He thought it might have been the wind howling, until Maya ran to the door and barked. Not out of fear, but urgency. Easy, girl, probably just a coyote, he muttered, grabbing a flashlight and opening the door cautiously. But it wasn't a coyote. Lying in the snow, a glowing blue smear beneath the shimmer of the northern lights, was a woman. Not human. Her skin was a soft, almost translucent blue, coated in delicate ice crystals. Her hair, soaked with snow, was pitch black and spilled in tangled strands over her shoulders. She was trembling, or maybe she didn't even have the strength to tremble anymore. In her arms, wrapped in damp metallic cloth, was a baby. Tiny, blue, eyes shut tight. She looked up at him, straining. Her eyes were dark, intelligent, but filled with exhaustion and fear. Help, please, she whispered, her voice cracking like the sky itself. Before he could answer, she collapsed, the baby sliding from her arms with a muffled gasp against her frozen chest. Noah froze. Every part of his training screamed not to get involved. This could be a trap, a bioweapon, or some threat Earth couldn't even begin to comprehend. But something in the baby's soft, helpless cry, so human, so desperate, pulled at him. He knelt down, scooped the baby into his shaking hands, and wrapped him in his jacket. The child was warm, alive, completely defenseless. He glanced at the alien woman, unconscious in the snow. She was dying. Without another thought, he picked her up, cradled the baby against his chest, and kicked the door shut behind him as the wind roared outside. The room filled with heat quickly as Noah threw more logs into the fire. He wrapped them both in thermal blankets and used his old first aid kit to tend to her. The baby, curious, watched him with big dark eyes, blinking slowly, as if analyzing every move. Maya growled softly, inching forward. It's okay, girl. They're hurt. Not here to fight. The woman woke up an hour later, her eyes wide and terrified. She tried to sit up, but slumped to the side. You're safe here, Noah said gently. I'm not going to hurt you. Or the baby. She tried to speak, but coughed, then pulled the child tighter to her chest, murmuring something in a strange language. Her eyes welled with tears. Do you understand English? Noah asked carefully. You spoke earlier. She nodded barely. A little learned from listening to humans. My name is Noah. Do you have a name? There was a moment of silence. She hesitated, like saying her name would be giving away a piece of herself. Sarah. It came out soft, like wind brushing glass. Noah nodded. Sarah. And him. He motioned to the baby. She hesitated again, then brushed a hand through the child's hair. His name is Kale. By sunrise, she was still trembling. Noah managed to brew a simple infusion with herbs and electrolytes, then warmed a can of soup for himself. She didn't eat. She just held the baby like he was the last anchor she had to the universe. Hours later, her voice steadier, Sarah began to tell part of her story. I was hunted by my own kind. Because Kale was born hybrid, imperfect. They call him contamination. Noah frowned. Contamination? He's just a baby. They don't see it that way. My caste, they believe in purity, in erasing anything that hints at weakness. And I disobeyed. She looked him in the eye, a weight in her gaze that felt ancient. I had nowhere else to go. But I was told, humans sometimes help, even when everything says they shouldn't. You are unpredictable. Noah gave a crooked smile. Yeah, we get that a lot. She reached out, placing her hand on his. Kale has to live. Even if I can't make it, will you take care of him? For a moment, he hesitated. The weight of that choice was crushing. But something inside him, something he didn't even know still existed, answered before reason could speak. Yes, I will. And in that moment, without even realizing it, Noah stopped being just a lonely man at the end of the world. He became something more. A shelter, a bridge between species, a father, even if he had no idea how to be one yet. 3 days had passed since Syrah and Kale entered Noah's life. The old wooden cabin, once silent and unchanging, now pulsed with soft new sounds. The baby's curious babble, the aliens' whispered lullabies at night, and Maya's cautious footsteps, as the huskies seemed to accept them as part of the pack. Syrah was recovering slowly, though she still showed signs of weakness. Earth's gravity drained her, and the oxygen affected her lungs in strange, uneven ways. Noah improvised a humidifier system and adjusted the heat levels in the cabin to make things easier for her. Even so, he noticed it wasn't just her body that was tired. She was afraid, always checking the windows, even though they were covered. She slept clutching the baby tight to her chest. At night, she spoke to the sky in her native tongue, as if waiting for something or someone to come for them. On the 4th morning, Noah found her at the radio, nervously turning the dials. "Are you trying to communicate?" he asked, voice tense. Syrah spun around and quickly shut the device off. "No, I'm trying to listen. They might be searching. If they catch your frequency, they'll come." Noah stepped closer, eyes locked on her. "Who exactly are they, Syrah?" She hesitated. The baby whimpered in her arms, and she gently rocked him before finally replying. "They're called the Varkon. My caste. They don't tolerate weakness. They don't tolerate emotion. And they definitely don't tolerate deserters. When I fled, I stole a pod that crash-landed on this planet long ago. I came here because it's the most forgotten world. But if they track me, they'll burn everything to erase the shame." "What kind of burn everything are we talking about here?" Noah asked, trying not to sound alarmed. Syrah looked at him, her dark eyes steady. "They don't send soldiers. They send reapers." Noah spent the rest of the day watching his instruments, radios, frequency detectors, even the old low-orbit satellite. He kept limping along with patchy signal. Something inside him, long dormant, was waking up again. The soldier's instinct. That deep knowing that peace was ending. By evening, as he cooked, he heard soft footsteps behind him. It was Syrah. She approached carefully, eyes drifting over the kitchen tools like she was walking through a museum of human oddities. "You cook everything with fire?" "Directly. It's a cabin, not a starship," he said with a half-smile. "Yeah, around here, things are pretty analog." Syrah touched the rim of a metal mug, going quiet for a long moment. Kale was never given a name back home, never given the right to live. Children like him, they're taken. Noah felt his stomach twist. "You saved him." She looked at him, fierce and full of purpose. "Yes, but now he's your responsibility too." Noah took a steady breath. "I get that, and I'll protect him." "No, you don't get it," she said quietly. "You're human. You think everything can be solved with effort and heart. But my people, they tear out hearts with cold logic." He looked at her, and for the first time, saw not just a mother, but a former soldier, a survivor forged in loss. In the early hours of the 5th day, the cabin's perimeter alarms went off. Noah bolted upright, grabbing the old rifle he still kept in working condition. Maya growled low, tense, her fur bristling. Syrah appeared seconds later, Kale bundled tightly against her chest. "Did you feel that?" she asked. Something broke the motion barrier. It had to be big. He moved to the monitor screen. A heat signature had passed roughly 200 meters from the house, then vanished. No tracks, no sound, no residual heat. "That's not a bear," he said. "Too fast." Syrah turned pale. "They found us." The next morning, Noah hurriedly dug out an old emergency shelter near the mountain base. He stocked it with supplies, heaters, solar panels, and improvised gear. He couldn't trust the cabin anymore. It was only a matter of time before a ship, or something worse, came down. While he worked, Syrah came over. "You're very strange for a human," she said. "How so?" "You act like protecting Kale is natural, like he's yours. But he's not. Maybe he's more than that. Noah replied. Maybe he's my second chance. She stared at him, eyes steady and unblinking. I don't understand you. He grinned, sweaty and covered in dirt. Welcome to the club. That night, as Sarah put Cale to sleep and Noah finished reinforcing the shelter, the sky began to shift. The stars blinked strangely, as if something between them and Earth was moving. Sarah looked up. A single tear slipped down her cheek. They're coming. Noah clenched his fist, and then he did something he hadn't expected. He reached out his hand, and Sarah, after a moment's hesitation, took it. There, in the freezing Alaskan wilderness, under a sky on the brink of war, a human and an alien made a silent pact to protect the child neither species wanted, and to fight together. Dawn broke red, as if the planet itself sensed what was coming. The clouds twisted in unnatural spirals. There was something in the air. Even Maya felt it. She refused to leave the makeshift shelter. Noah checked the solar panels, then inspected every trap he'd rigged around the cabin. Nothing high-tech enough to stop interstellar ships, but his old training had taught him one core principle: delay, hide, survive. From a distance, Sarah watched him, sitting on a frost-covered rock. The baby slept strapped against her chest, his bluish skin glowing softly in the morning light. You know you can't win a war against them, right? She said bluntly. Noah didn't look up. He kept working the wires. I'm not trying to win a war. I'm trying to keep you and Cale alive. To them, that is a war. He sighed, tightened the last knot, and walked over to her. Then so be it. Sarah held the baby tighter. The tension in her face wasn't just fear, it was guilt. The kind of weight only those who've sacrificed too much carry on their shoulders. That afternoon, the first attack came. Silent, unexpected. An electromagnetic pulse swept the area like an invisible wave. All of Noah's systems flickered, beeped, and died. The radio, the surveillance system, the solar heaters, all of it. It was as if the world had been thrown 100 years into the past. Noah sprinted to the shelter. Sarah was already inside, shielding Cale with her body. They shut everything down? She asked, eyes wide. EMP, electromagnetic pulse, used to fry tech. But he pulled out a hand-crank flashlight and spun it. The bulb lit up. Low-tech still gives us an edge. For now. Sarah furrowed her brow. You're not afraid? I am, he said. But I'm not the type who runs first. With the main systems down, Noah relied on thermal sensors and old-school night vision. At 2:17 a.m., he spotted something moving north of the tree line. Two shapes, one large, one smaller, both glowing in infrared, with a heat signature unlike anything he'd seen before. He grabbed a rifle, flipped the safety, and climbed silently up to the lookout post. But what he saw wasn't what he expected. They were humanoid, yes, but tall, thin, with arms that ended in retractable blades. Their faces had no visible eyes, just black slits like breathing vents. Reapers. Sarah's description had come to life right in front of him. They didn't attack. They simply looked toward the shelter, or what passed for looking for creatures clearly built to kill, not to think. Then, without a sound, they turned and vanished into the trees. Noah ran back down and bolted to the shelter. They're here, he panted. Two of them. They're watching us. Sarah's face drained of color. Then they'll strike soon. They always study the ground first. They don't act on impulse. We need to move, he said. But Cale can't survive long out there. He's barely breathing in this cold. She looked at him, eyes heavy with something deeper than fear. I can go. Draw them away. I still have an old transmitter with me. If I carry it, they'll follow the signal. You and Cale escape through the southern trail. Noah was silent for a long second. No, he said firmly. That's suicide. Sarah stepped closer. You don't understand. They won't stop. I'm the threat, not the baby. As long as I'm alive, he'll never be safe. You're his mother. And that's exactly why I'd do anything to make sure he lives, even if I die for it. The next morning, Noah woke to find Sarah already dressed in heavy gear, the transmitter strapped to her back. The baby still slept inside the shelter, bundled in fur and blankets. You're not going to stop me, Noah, she said calmly. Then take me with you. She shook her head. If you come, Cale's alone, and I won't trust his future to anyone else. Noah didn't move. His eyes burned. The cold had gotten into his bones. Sira stepped closer, slowly. She looked straight into his eyes. "You saved my son. You gave me time. You gave me hope. If there's another life after this one, I hope I find you again." Then, without a word, she leaned in and rested her forehead against his. A sacred gesture in her culture. A goodbye spoken not with words, but with soul. And then she turned and walked into the snow. Noah stood frozen, the warmth of her touch fading fast. Behind him, Cale began to cry. In the forest, the blue glow of the transmitter pulsed between the trees. Sira was running, weak, but determined. Above, the sky darkened, not from nightfall, from the ship. The Reapers had made their move. Now it was her turn, even if it was her last. Sira ran through the trees, each step pounding against the snow like a drumbeat. The transmitter strapped to her back pulsed blue, emitting a steady signal on a forbidden frequency, a beacon of betrayal to her own kind. Every 20 seconds, a flash. A reminder, she was still alive, and they still want her dead. She wasn't running for herself. She was running for Cale, for Noah, and for something she barely dared name. The hope that two worlds so different might still reach for one another. Above, the sky split, literally, through thick clouds and veils of ice. A black tear opened in the firmament like a cosmic wound. From it emerged a ship, not just a vessel, but a leviathan, an interstellar fortress clad in living metal, pulsing with its own heartbeat. It looked as if death had grown a shell and hurled itself at Earth. The Reapers had called home, and now, nowhere on this planet was safe. Noah watched from a distance through his old binoculars. The shelter was hidden beneath branches, rocks, and thermal camouflage. Cale slept beside him, unaware the universe had decided to hunt him. He saw Sira's blue silhouette running, and then he saw the flashes. The Reapers moved with supernatural speed, leaping between trees like liquid shadows. One of them was closing in on her, far too fast. Noah dropped the binoculars and sprinted to the emergency box. He pulled out the one device he hadn't yet used, a gravity pulse grenade. Illegal, unstable, left over from his military days. Just one shot. He glanced at Cale, who was now staring back at him. Dark, innocent eyes. "Your dad wouldn't have hesitated, kid," Noah whispered. "So I won't either." Sira stumbled. The snow swallowed her. The transmitter fell and rolled a few feet, still pulsing. The Reaper leapt toward her, arm blades unfurling like obsidian scythes. There was no hesitation. There never was. Then the world exploded in light. The grenade activated with a sharp, muted pop, and suddenly, a gravity well ripped through the air, pulling everything toward it with violent force. The Reaper was hurled into a tree and shredded by the blast. Sira, dazed, saw a figure running through the debris and ice. Noah. He pulled her up with surprising strength. "You've lost your mind," she gasped, dizzy. "Probably, but you're not dying today. And Cale, he's safe. For now, I think." A low roar echoed through the forest. Another Reaper, and behind it, a beam of light from the ship, as if the very structure was preparing to launch something even worse. "They're sending the Executor," Sira said, eyes wide. "The one that doesn't stop." Executor? Like a final boss. "This isn't a joke, Noah." "Then run." They ran, harder than they'd ever run in their lives. Behind them, trees shattered. A blast of energy tore apart a hillside. Boulders rained down. The ship wasn't just observing anymore. It was wiping the terrain clean. They reached the shelter minutes later, gasping, covered in ice and ash. Maya barked wildly. Cale was crying, sensing the fear in the air. "Grab what you can. We have to go," said Noah. Sira dropped to her knees beside her son. She cried, but made no sound. Only tears. There's nowhere left to hide. That's when the sky exploded again. But it wasn't a ship. It was a pod. Small. It crashed hard, just 300 meters from the shelter. From the smoke, a figure emerged. Not a Reaper. Someone from Sira's caste, but dressed in ceremonial gold, adorned with symbols that glowed like living runes. His eyes were like hers, but empty. "Sirathiel, by the authority of the Varkhan Council, you are condemned for genetic heresy and sacred desertion." The voice didn't come through the air. It echoed directly into their minds. Sira stood tall, baby in her arms. "I don't regret it. The alien raised an arm. A weapon formed. A bow of pure energy. He aimed, but before he could fire, Noah stepped forward. Between them, unarmed, unarmored, just a human, shaking but steady. "You'll have to go through me first." The executor hesitated. He hesitated, as if something entirely foreign had entered his programming, as if the presence of a human disrupted him. Sira held the child tighter, and for the first time, she said the words Noah would never forget. "I choose to stay. With you." Right there, in the face of the impossible, an abandoned alien mother, a hunted baby, and a man with no home, became something stronger than any army. A family. If you've ever rooted for an impossible love story, hit subscribe. We've got more tales like this one, full of heart, courage, and choices that change everything. And tell us in the comments, would you have stayed or run? The executor didn't fire. The weapon still glowed in his hand like a promise he hadn't kept. But he had hesitated. And for the Varkhan, hesitation was nearly as grave as betrayal. The silence that followed was like a vacuum, as if the universe itself held its breath. Sira didn't understand it. Neither did Noah. And even Kale, just days old, fell instinctively silent, his bright blue eyes locked in an almost hypnotic focus on the golden-armored alien. Then the executor spoke again, his voice drilling into their minds. "You are nothing, human. No blood, no caste, no law." Noah didn't flinch. "But I'm a father now," he said, voice steady. "And that's more than you'll ever understand." Sira looked at him in shock. He had never said that out loud. Not to her. Not even to himself. The executor hesitated again. The light beam above his head flickered. Something was wrong with the protocol, the programming that guided his mission. A mother was supposed to be eliminated, a child erased, but the involvement of a human, that complicated everything. Then he turned his back and walked away. He gave up. Noah asked, breathless. Sira didn't answer right away. Her eyes were still fixed on the trail left by the golden pod as it took off. "No, he's going to report. What happened here is beyond his authority." Noah frowned. "Is that good or bad?" "Worse," she whispered. In the hours that followed, they broke down the shelter. The forest was too quiet. No birds, no animals, as if nature itself had fled. Kale slept peacefully, his tiny arms twitching gently, like he was dreaming of worlds where he wasn't hunted. Sira worked efficiently, sorting food, bundling clothes, cataloging every bit of Earth knowledge Noah had stored in books and old flash drives. "You going somewhere?" he asked. She hesitated. "If I run now, they'll keep hunting. But if I do something public, visible, maybe they'll hesitate. Maybe I can break the code from the inside." Noah folded his arms. "You want to turn yourself in, not surrender. Expose the truth. Kale is alive. He's healthy. And you took him in. If I can reach the judgment chamber in orbit, I might be able to force a hearing." Noah shook his head. "You really think they'll listen?" "They'll have to. You could die, Sira." She stepped closer, holding the baby. "Or I could give him a real future." Noah looked at the child in her arms, then at her. "If you go, I'm going with you. You don't belong to this world, Noah. Not to mine either." Before dawn, they left. They walked away from Alaska with makeshift packs, alien tech disguised under thermal clothes and hand-drawn maps. The plan was insane. Cross the continent to reach a hidden communication site in the Nevada desert, where Sira could trigger a climb anchor, a clandestine structure once used by her caste to retrieve fallen artifact from Earth. If they could activate it, they might reach orbit, reach the heart of the Varkhan judiciary. But every step was a gamble. Reapers could ambush them anywhere. Human agents might intercept them. One mistake could expose Kale, and with him, destroy every last hope. They moved through forests, abandoned back roads, ghost towns. At night, they slept in caves, forgotten barns, or beneath the stars. Sometimes it rained. Sometimes it snowed. Sometimes the silence pressed so hard, only Kale's cries reminded them the world still existed. In one of those shelters, Sira watched as Noah cradled the baby against his chest, warming him with his own body heat. "You've changed." He smiled without looking. "We all change when someone needs us." Sira came closer. "You never asked about Kale's real father." "I didn't need to know," he said, "but I want you to." He looked up. Syrah sat beside him, her gaze far away. He was from a science cast. Curious, a questioner, and too human. They erased him before Kale was born. But Kale carries that in him. That spark, that quiet rebellion, that instinct to protect, no matter the cost. Noah stayed silent for a moment. Then he said, "Then I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." 2 days later, they reached the desert. And then, something completely unexpected happened. A transmission, intercepted by Noah while they slept. From space. Encrypted. Short. Target. Human identified as Noah Keller. Direct interference with the Varkon biogenetic order. Termination order authorized. It wasn't about Syrah. It wasn't about Kale. It was him. They'd changed the target. Noah was now the enemy. What if you were in his place? Would you risk everything for someone not even from your species? Subscribe to the channel and drop a comment. I'd stay or I'd run. There are a lot of stories like this here, but none quite like this one. The desert heat wasn't just physical. It was a test. The kind that melts away what's fake and leaves only what's real. Flesh, bone, and truth. Noah, Syrah, and Kale had left Alaska nearly 2 weeks ago. Snow gave way to sand. The silence of trees replaced by the hum of a world that seemed eager to forget them. No one trusted strangers. Towns were hostile, eyes suspicious. But with every new shelter, every star-filled night, their makeshift family became something real. Noah always woke before sunrise. The baby lay curled up against his chest, as if instinctively knowing that in that embrace, the world was just a little less cruel. Syrah had started talking more. She shared scattered stories from her childhood, growing up in ships where laughter wasn't allowed, about her home planet, with lilac skies and black oceans, about how she cried the first time she saw snow on Earth, even though it only meant she was lost and alone. He listened to everything, never interrupting, never correcting, just listening the way no one ever had before. One day, in the shade of an abandoned gas station, Noah was fiddling with the burnt-out wires of an old military tablet when Syrah walked up holding a dried flower. "Is this pretty?" she asked, holding up the twisted, brittle thing. "For someone living in the desert," he said, "any color is a miracle. In my caste, useless things are destroyed. No function, no worth." Noah took the flower, studied it. Then maybe beauty's the greatest act of rebellion. She looked at him for a long moment. "You're dangerous to logic." He smiled. "Hope you keep finding me dangerous." She looked down and smiled too. For the first time, not with her lips, but with her eyes. As they neared the hidden installation in the Nevada desert, the terrain grew more hostile. Unidentified drones buzzed across the sky. Strange signals pinged through the transmitters. Syrah's dreams turned to nightmares. Kale cried more, like he could sense something no one else could. Noah began sleeping with a rifle at his shoulder. Syrah started teaching him visual code from her caste. 3 slashes in the dirt meant danger. 4 intersecting lines meant refuge. They weren't just fugitives anymore. They were an alliance. On their 10th night in the desert, they camped inside a natural crater. The stars felt closer there, almost touchable. Noah sat looking up, Kale in his arms. The child stared at the Milky Way, his eyes wide, as if recognizing the path home. "He's so calm sometimes," Syrah said, sitting beside him. "Other times, it's like he senses things even I can't." "You think he's special?" She paused. "Not special, maybe different. His DNA's hybrid, but his mind, it might be something beyond both." Noah looked at her. "You know what's strange?" "What?" "Since the day you showed up at my door, this is the first time in years I haven't felt like I'm running from myself." Syrah stared at him. "Do you ever think about after the escape, after the judgment? If we survive, what would you do?" Noah took a deep breath. "I'd build a house. A real one. Somewhere Kale can run without fear. Where you can sleep without a weapon nearby. And where no one looks at me like a mistake." She smiled softly. "You really think that could be possible?" He turned to her. "With you?" "Yeah." The pause that followed echoed like a heartbeat in the silence of the cosmos. She leaned in, slowly. So did he. And for the first time, without fear, without running, without broken promises, they kissed. The next morning, something had shifted. Syrah was calmer, no more alert. It was as if something invisible had tethered them to each other. like gravity between two celestial bodies. But that new balance was about to be tested fast. Noah scanned the horizon through his cracked binoculars when he saw the light. Not a star, not a drone, a point of light growing fast. He ran down the hill, shouting, "Sira, they found us." She was already grabbing Kale. The light streaked across the sky like a meteor, but it wasn't falling from above. It was racing in from the horizon. Fast, terrifying. It's a tracker hunter. Sira yelled. They don't hesitate, Noah. They don't think. They're programmed to eliminate target DNA, even if it means destroying everything around them. We've got to reach the facility before it gets here, Noah said, strapping the baby into the sling across his chest. Sira yanked the power lever on her bracelet. A hidden capsule, buried beneath the valley floor, began to rise, groaning, its metal skin hissing with pressure. "Get in," she said. "You really think this thing's gonna fly?" "No." "Perfect." They climbed in, slammed the hatch shut, and as the hunter closed in, the capsule launched straight up. The pressure shook Noah to his bones. The baby screamed. Sira held them both as the capsule shrieked with twisted metal, sputtering thrusters, and silent prayers. But it worked. They were ascending, leaving the desert behind, leaving the planet behind, but not leaving behind who they were. Because now, they weren't just human and alien. They were bound by fate. And Kale, the baby nobody wanted, was the reason for it all. The capsule pierced the upper atmosphere with a deafening metallic groan. Kale cried in Sira's arms. Noah was drenched in sweat, barely able to keep his eyes open against the pressure crushing his chest. And then, through the curve of space, they saw it. The Varkon Council Station, a massive orbital ring, alive, breathing like an ancient organism. Lights pulsed beneath its obsidian skin like liquid fire. It was more temple than tech, a sanctuary built for cold laws and flawless executions. Sira gripped the landing lever. "We'll dock through the extraction bay. They won't expect a direct approach. And if they do," Noah asked, "then we kill whoever's waiting." The station's magnetic claws clamped onto the capsule with a jarring clang. Noah was the first to jump out. Armored in compact plate Sira had gifted him, custom fit to his human form. He carried a pulse rifle and 2 collapsible blades at his belt. Sira followed, Kale strapped to her back, an energy spear in hand. Her face was different now. Steady, ready. "If they activate the inner reapers, we'll have 2 minutes to live," she said. "Then we make it loud." They moved through the outer corridors, winding tunnels that looked like living metal intestines. Doors hissed open for Sira, still recognizing her as one of the cast. But when they reached the ceremonial hall, the Varkon were already waiting. 10 council members hovered in elevated thrones, encircled by golden rings and sheer biothreads connecting their minds directly to the station's brain. And in the center stood the executor. "Traitor," he said, "you brought a human into the heart of purity." Sira stepped forward, the baby cloaked in a glowing energy shield that shimmered over her skin. "He's not just any human. He's the father of my child, and he's here to claim the right to exist. This isn't a trial. It's heresy." Then, the walls split open. From all 4 corners of the chamber came the inner reapers, deadlier than the ones on Earth. Faster, almost invisible, blades vibrating through air and silence alike. Noah raised his rifle. "Here we go." The first reaper lunged like a living shadow. Noah rolled aside and fired. The round punched through its shell, but didn't stop it. Sira leapt overhead and drove her spear straight into its neck. She screamed, not in fear, but with ancient fury. Kale lives. 2 more reapers emerged from the flanks. Noah spun around one of the chamber's pillars, firing with brutal precision. 1 reaper exploded into fragments. The other reached him. Its blade grazed his arm, searing straight to the bone. He staggered, fell, but rose again, gripping a short blade in his good hand. "You don't touch my family." And he drove the knife into the creature's chest. At the center of the room, the executor watched in silence. Then he descended from his throne, stepping onto the ground like a god who had finally decided to get his feet dirty. He walked towards Sira. She spun her spear into position. "Touch Kale," she growled, "and I'll tear your head off." The executor stopped. "Your child is already dead, Sira. What's alive now is a biological mistake." She lunged, The fight was fast, brutal, ugly. The spear cut through the air, but he dodged like he could predict every move. Noah tried to help, but another reaper blocked his path. It became a dance of destruction. Shattered glass floated midair. Kale's cries echoed like alarms. Lights flickered. Blue blood, Cirrus. Red blood, Noah's. It stained the floor. At the peak of the fight, Cirrus dropped to her knees. The executor raised his arm. The final blow was coming. Then Noah did the unthinkable. Unarmed, bleeding, collarbone shattered. He leapt onto the executor's back and tackled him into the central platform. They both fell into the energy chamber that powered the station's living intelligence. Silence. Cirrus screamed, "Noah," but he didn't fall. Seconds later, a hand rose from the abyss. Noah, soaked in blood, dragging the executor's twisted, burnt corpse with him. "I disabled the core chamber," he gasped. "Now, they can't make decisions or erase records. Kale is officially recognized." Cirrus dropped to her knees, tears running freely. Kale laughed. He laughed the first time. Noah slumped to the floor, barely breathing. "How about now, a little peace?" The artificial gravity field disengaged. For the first time, Noah floated, not as an astronaut, but as a survivor. He drifted in an alien medical chamber. No armor, no weapons, just wrapped in living bandages that pulsed with a soft blue glow, fabric that adapted to his wounded body. Every breath hurt, but pain meant he was alive. Cirrus sat beside him, silent. Kale slept between them, swaddled, safe, still smiling faintly. The echo of that laugh on the battlefield lingering in his dreams. "You made him laugh," Cirrus whispered. Noah turned, eyes heavy. "It's the first good sound I've heard since this whole thing started." She looked at the baby, brushing his cheek with trembling fingers. "He laughed because he saw you fall. He thought you were playing. Didn't know it was life or death. Yours, ours." Noah gave a tired, crooked smile. Better to laugh by mistake than cry from knowing too much. Silence settled again, but it wasn't empty. It burned, like embers waiting to reignite what had never truly gone out. Cirrus reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. "You lost too much blood," she said. "You lost your home, your caste, your identity. And you." She hesitated. Then, with barely a breath, "You nearly gave up everything for someone who wasn't even yours." "Don't say that," Noah replied. "You two are the most mine I've ever had." The orbital station was still in quiet reconstruction. The central mine was gone, thanks to Noah, but its emergency system still functioned. It felt like living inside a sleeping monster, still dangerous, still full of scars. No one was chasing them anymore, but no one had acknowledged them either. And somehow, that hurt even more. Days later, Cirrus approached with something in her hands. A twisted shard of metal, smoothed and polished by hand. "It's from the spear I used against the executor. It broke, but I thought you should have it." Noah took the piece, felt its weight. "Why me?" "Because you finished the fight. Not alone, but you were the one who jumped without hesitation. You chose to die for us." He looked her in the eyes. "Cirrus, I don't know where this is going. I don't know if we'll stay together, if we'll find a planet, if Kale will grow up free." She nodded. "I don't know either, but I know one thing." "What's that?" "I can't live in a place where you're not." She closed her eyes, and two silver tears, not like human ones, slowly traced down her blue-tinged cheeks. "Then maybe we have to make that place." In one of the station's abandoned rooms, they found an old communications chamber. Noah managed to reactivate it, barely, using parts from a melted panel, improvised sensors, and scraps from his own wrist device. Not to send a distress signal, but to leave a message for whoever might come after. He recorded it with a steady voice, though his heart was wide open. "If anyone's listening, this is Noah Keller. I'm human. I survived. I fought. I loved. I'm with Sirathale from the Varkon cast. And with Kale. He wasn't supposed to exist, but he does. And that changed everything. The war isn't over. But here, now, there's peace. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it'll inspire someone. Or maybe, just maybe it'll save whoever comes next." Cirrus placed her hand gently over his when he finished. And without a word, she pressed her forehead to his. This time, not a goodbye. A beginning. In the weeks that followed, they ritually decommissioned the station. They activated the separation modules and assembled a small habitat, complete with energy, climate control, and recycled water. A new home, fragile, floating, but free. Kale began making early sounds, guttural noises mixed with soft mental pulses. He was speaking, with his mind, to both of them. He already understands both worlds, Noah said, amazed. Because he was born between them, Sierra replied. And maybe that's how the future needs to be born too. And one night, with no alarms, no running, no fear, Noah stared out at the stars through the habitat window and whispered, "Thank you for not leaving me behind." Sierra leaned against his side, eyes half closed. "I didn't find you by accident, Noah. How can you be sure?" She looked at Kale, asleep. "Because if it had been an accident, I wouldn't have fought so hard to save you." He took her hand, and in the infinite quiet of space, between the ruins of an empire and the birth of a new bond, they finally rested, without fear. Time doesn't pass the same way in space. There are no sunrises, no falling stars, just the sound of breathing, the blink of maintenance lights, the silent pulse of a station that once was a temple, and now a refuge. And in that stillness, Noah realized they had won, not in a military sense, not with medals or flags, but in the only way that mattered. Kale was alive. Sierra was still fighting, with him, not alone. And Noah, a man who had lost everything, now had something he'd never even known he needed: belonging. In an old notebook, one he updated with pen and paper, Noah wrote, "You don't truly know what it is to love someone until you're ready to die for what they represent, not just for them." Loving Sierra means loving a planet that isn't mine. It means defying the very biology of the universe. And loving Kale, it's like loving the future, a future nobody wanted, but that now exists because we dared to exist with him. Sierra found the notebook days later, read it in silence, then quietly returned it without a word. But that night, when Noah lay down to sleep, she lay beside him. For the first time, without hesitation, without armor, without walls. "Do you believe in destiny?" she asked. "Where I come from, destiny's just what people say when they don't know where they're going." "And what do you think all this was?" He paused, looking at Kale, sleeping, his tiny fingers tangled in the threads of an old, earth-worn cloth and a hand-stitched alien blanket from Sierra. The beginning of something no one has a name for yet. She leaned into him. Maybe that's what destiny really is. Over time, Noah began training Kale, not with weapons, but with stories. He told stories from Earth, forgotten legends, indigenous myths, African folktales, Greek parables, and poems from the stars. Kale listened with wide eyes. Sometimes he smiled. Sometimes he cried without knowing why. One day he asked, "Dad, am I a mistake?" Noah gently held his son's face. "You're the most improbable miracle in the galaxy. And every miracle breaks a law. That's not a mistake. That's evolution." Sierra began studying old council records. She uncovered erased histories. Other hybrid children. Other humans who'd been discarded. There weren't many, but they had existed. And she made a vow to find them all. To rebuild, piece by piece, the story that had been buried in fear. Noah supported her. Kale grew, and the small station became a haven, a meeting place for survivors, outcasts, the forgotten, people who didn't belong anywhere. But here, they were family. One night, while watching the galaxy turn slowly like a distant dream, Sierra asked, "Do you still miss Earth?" Noah thought for a moment. "Sometimes, but not like before. Before, I missed what I thought was home. Now, I found home somewhere else." She smiled. "Me too." And he added, "And I think it's not a place. It's you." The universe remained hostile. The laws were still cruel. But somewhere in the galaxy, a space drifted quietly, where a human, an alien, and a boy who belonged to both worlds proved, day after day, that existence is the greatest act of resistance, and love is the only language that survives. Years passed. Kale grew up, not like an ordinary human, not like a traditional Varkon, but as the first child of the impossible. Those vibrant blue eyes, the same ones that once looked death in the face from a fugitive mother's arms, now stared at the universe with fierce curiosity. He spoke many languages, not out of duty, but instinct. He communicated with animals. He sensed things before they happened. He had an empathy that cracked open even the coldest hearts. He wasn't just a hybrid. He was the beginning of something no species had ever imagined. The once silent station became a galactic refuge. Exiles, rogue scientists, humans who'd lost everything, repentant Varkon, they all came, not for Kale, but for hope. Because wherever he was, things began to grow. Noah grew older, with deep lines on his face and scars on his soul. But he never complained. He used to say, "I wasn't the savior. I was just the first one to say, 'Come in.'" And that phrase was engraved at the station's entrance, in every known language. And a few Kale invented. Sierra never returned to her caste, because she built a new one. She called it the free caste. No hierarchies. No punishment for being born different. Here, a child wasn't measured by genetic purity, but by kindness, courage, and imagination. In one of Noah's final journal entries, he wrote, "One day, someone's going to ask how it all began. And Kale will say, 'My mother was running from death. My father opened a door. And the rest was choice.'" At Noah's symbolic grave, made of moonstone and old earthwood, Kale placed a dried flower. The same kind Sierra had once shown his father when they were still on the run. "Useless beauty," she had said. "Rebellion," he had replied. Now, that flower had become a symbol of what survives. The love no one planned. The life no one approved. At 19, Kale flew out of the station alone for the first time. He carried a journal, part of his father's DNA, and his mother's wish, to plant hope on worlds where no one believed anymore. Before leaving, he recorded his voice for anyone who might one day listen. "I'm not just a child born from war. I'm the son of people who had courage. And wherever I go, courage goes first. Because wherever courage goes, the impossible happens." If you made it this far, you're part of this journey too. Drop a comment. I'd open the door. Because sometimes, all a new universe needs is for someone to have the courage to welcome the impossible. Thank you for reading this story all the way to the end. If it moved you, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe. There are many more journeys waiting for a brave heart just like yours.